Welcome once again to The Lost Signals discusses games and gaming culture, a pretentious, philosophical, pedantic podcast where we focus on various aspects of video games as well as other issues and topics within gaming in general. Hello there, my friends, and welcome back to The Lost Signals discusses and reviews and rates video games and gaming culture. I am Scott Thurlow here with my last man on Earth, Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Welcome to the special coronavirus episode.
And we are here bunkered down from the Omega Man bunker, like I said. And we're going to do, as per tradition, our top games of the year. So it is now technically 2020, but this would be 2019 games in order in various categories. So, what we normally do, our standard, let's keep it going. We're going to do top 5, but we're counting from 5 to 1. So I'll toss it to you. What is your number 5 game of the year, sir?
My number 5 game of the year was an actual difficult choice, as we'll talk when we get to the mid-tier games. But I chose A Plague Tale: Innocence for my number 5.
Very good call.
I enjoyed the game, and it has had a lasting impact with me. I think that for a AA game, it was impressive. It reminds me of, oddly enough, Vampire from previous years in that level of quality, that it's not necessarily a AAA game in scope, but it was...
The highest tier AA game, I guess.
It was creative in its implementation. I liked the story. And for the most part, I liked the execution. Perhaps the ending was slightly... Like the battle against the Pope or Cardinal or whatever it was. It's been a while since I played it.
It was ridiculous, but...
For the most part, though, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did gush about it at the time, and I recommend it to people, so it gets my number 5 spot.
I agree. It'll be spoiler, it'll be a little bit above, but my number 5 is Control. So it's my dudes at Remedy, if you will, Remedy Development. They did Alan Wake. They did the first 2 Max Paynes, or at least the first Max Payne. I'm pretty sure the first 2 at least. And whereas Alan Wake was sort of Twin Peaks-ish kind of thing, Control is X-Files versus cross with like Warehouse 13. And just as a theme this year, my top 5 games had incredible world building. I think that was the theme for me, like the thing that linked it together. And so I give them a lot of credit. Control was a lot of fun. It was just a great third-person action game with an amazing setting, and they're doing DLCs. The first DLC comes out as of the day of this recording in like a couple of days. And it slipped in. I liked it a bit. I sort of like wavered upon it. Like I almost put it in honorable. But like no, given it for what it is and what it stands for and what they did with it, it was just an amazing game, back to front, and well done. And I wish them the best, and I hope to see more from them. But Control slips in as number 5 and fucking solid.
I'll have more to talk about Control later on.
All right, fair enough.
So my number 4?
Go do.
So I have Greedfall, which was at a point my number 1 of the year.
Yeah? Okay.
Problem is, I'm a trophy whore. And I have platinumed 8 of my 11 games that I have on my list.
Okay.
I platinumed Greedfall. Greedfall has diminishing returns. It was a great one playthrough game, but it required me to play through it fully.
4 or 5 times or something?
Not fully twice, but I had to play multiple endings, and to get one of the romances, I needed to play through most of the game again as a female character, which is not a problem, but it was a time investment. It started to wear on me, the plot, and it will be. And when I talk about other games I have on my list on why it's better,
that's interesting.
It did have diminishing returns, even though I really thoroughly enjoyed it the first playthrough. So, that's my argument for it.
It's funny. I have more to say about that, but good call for sure. So, moving to my number 4, it's Plague Tale. I guess as a caveat, if I didn't mention before, I probably have played more games than you and the other, and even Chris and Stevo, if they were here. But so Plague Tale, which is here's my submission to you. It's the A24 of games.
Okay,
right? Like, that's how I feel about it. And it was just the perfect coalescence of solid AA studio who had done like a game or two before, sure, but linear, like, yes, the levels were like open-ish, but the way it's designed, the story's incredible, the voice acting is fantastic, and it's just something you don't see very often, and it did such a good job encapsulating first-person narrative. Again, like, not on rails per se, but linear, and like they knew the vision they wanted, and they went with it and produced it, and it was very impactful, and it's something you haven't seen. It's one of my favorite settings historically, of course, but like I said, all the elements combined to make it, to me, number 4 game of the year. And again, if you know what A24 means in film, this studio sits in the sphere of A24 of games and is fantastic.
I absolutely agree with that. So my number 3 is Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney trilogy. Now, this is the only game on my best list I haven't platinum yet because I'm playing through it right now. I played through the first 2 games in the trilogy. Yeah. I'm about halfway through the third one. I will have platinum it eventually. The thing is, perhaps it's because it's 3 games in one, but I'm really invested in this world. I love it.
It's super in-depth.
Objection. Hold it. It's very Japanese at times. It's a weird mixture of Japanese and American culture melded together. But
that's how it works.
It has built this world that now, when I hear that in reality there are musicals, there's anime, there are multiple DLCs, I can see why, because you're really invested in the story of Phoenix Wright and Maya, Edgeworth, and Von Karma. I mean, like this world is so full. You care about every one of the characters in it. They play a really fine line between having reoccurring characters but making it organic to the narrative. And I have to say my favorite character is Wendy Oldbag, who is this old woman who just talks so fast that you can't, that it just passes your button presses for the dialogue. You're not telling me that. It's such a fantastic world, and it's also an old school puzzle game, which I love. I grew up on those kind of the LucasArts games.
It's both bases, kind of,
but it's a little bit more intellectual than that. And yes, at times it does play into the old school, like, the game's logic versus reality logic, but for the most part, they play it straight in that it's a challenging legal drama in reality, and trying to find the right piece of evidence to prove your point. I'm totally bought into that world, and I have to give credit. And I've been wanting to play the Phoenix Wright trilogy for a very long time. I'm glad they released it on PS4. And if you're into kind of pseudo-intellectual, like, legal dramas, I think the average person will love it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like, I have personally never played any of it, but I've heard, like, very good things. It's a very respected series and franchise, and the fact that they had it on a bundle, like, you picked it up and quite enjoyed it.
I must say, for the first 2, at least, the last episodes of the first 2 games, I think the first one's a theoretical DLC, but it's incorporated there.
Sure.
They elevate the gameplay to being where you're defending someone who's guilty in the second one. I forget what the first one's. You're defending, I believe, Edgeworth in this second one. But all in all, like, they keep it fresh,
complexity,
and they build the world. And also, I love the judge. He's an idiot, but an endearing idiot.
Sure. So, like I said, world building again. It's a very beloved. Like, there's a very hardcore fan base about it, and it seems like
I'm now a member of that hardcore.
You're into it, yeah, for sure. All right, so. It's funny because it's going to cross over. My number 3 of the year is Greedfall, A24 of games, right? So I guess I'll say it's filling the void that BioWare like once did. And like, yeah, sure, there's some like a bit of technical or mechanical jankiness. Sure, you get past that. It's not that distracting. The story, the setting, I think is spot on. It was a fun as hell game to play. I liked, again, the writing was up my alley. I enjoyed it. It was something that you don't quite see. Like, it's like low fantasy. Like, yes, there's some monsters and stuff like here and there, but you're a fucking diplomat. You're trying to figure it out. Like, you're colonialist, right? I feel like that was a theme that has been coming up often enough on our general podcast. And yeah, like the way it filled it, like I believe the developer is called Spiders, and they made like some 2 or 3 like okay games beforehand, like okay received, like the reception was okay on them. But it's this is their like best work, it seems, and certainly I enjoyed it quite a bit. And yeah, it's interesting as hell. It's a third person RPG action, and I think the options, like the upgrades and all that, like, made sense, and the characters and the story was really well integrated. And there's some like twists and turns I throw in at you.
I did not expect Constantine to be the ultimate villain.
Yeah, like in like
they actually made me care about the person who would become the big bad.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing before we move on about Greedfall is that there's a plot line where I think Kurt is like your man at arms, like your bodyguard, and if you don't follow through enough on his like side quest, his personal quest, then he betrays you. Like, spoiler alert, but that was really cool. And like the way I followed through, I did all his quests. So like when it became time, like that scene happened, he was like, "Well, I would have, but since you supported me, I'm turning against my own company, right?"
Well, also, I'm gonna say Saracen. I forget the female's name, the love interest,
Sorcery or something like that.
If you don't do enough of her side quest, she leaves the party.
No, really?
As well, yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
So there are repercussions to not doing. Yeah. Although I'm a completionist, so
of course you saw all the outcomes. But
oddly enough, though, if I didn't have to play through it multiple times, I would have rated it higher.
Really?
Yeah. If I just had that one playthrough, my perception of it would have been much higher.
I guess that proves my point because I only played through. I did one playthrough. Yeah, one big one. Tried to do as much as possible in one, and it was very impressive. It impressed me, and I would love to see something to follow it up, like in the same world or like some kind of like sequel in a general sense.
So there's actually, I believe I was reading a argument to have a not DLC
that'd be cool.
Going further into that culture. And I think that would be really neat.
Yeah, the world building, like I said, the lore world building is a general theme of all the games on my list, and Greedfall was top notch about that. All right, so what do you got number 2?
Control is actually my number 2. I love the world that Control built. Yes, gameplay wise, it was okay, if not good, but Dr. Darling, and here's the thing is,
Matthew Tamber, I can't remember his name, but he's an amazing voice actor.
Oftentimes, when I get lore, I'll kind of skip
zone out with it. Yeah.
This, I was excited to get every piece of lore there because of the humor they put in, the retractions on. I was really bought into the world they built, and yes, especially with this the end game boss, like side quest bosses, it occasionally got repetitive. However, I really bought into the world they built, and I really want to see a sequel to Control because this world was so fascinating to me. I
agree. So PSA, it sold really well, and they promised. I bought it. The season pass, 2 pieces of DLC. One, the date of this recording is March 20th. In about 6 days, I believe March 26th, they're putting out the first one. So yeah, like I said, like it just happened to in a different universe. I would have
like the idea of the. Oh, sorry. The ashtray maze, especially that end sequence of you fighting the ashtray maze, was with the music attached to it, was cinematic.
Exactly.
In a way that Greedfall wasn't, because Greedfall was cinematic in the historical concept.
Right. Didn't quite achieve
but
that. But
there was this one scene they put in towards the end of the game of Control, which made me feel like I was an action hero in this world.
Yep. Many other outlets highlight the ashtray maze scene as like one of the best things, and like and again, like granted, like I've played probably like a bit more, like probably played like 30 games in over the year, but yeah, the fact that they were able to build that world and get me into it in another year, it would have been a little bit higher, but it's still number 5 on my list. But I agree, Control was fantastic. World building spot on, and even mechanically I thought was pretty solid. Like it was fun playing like a Jean Grey like character. You're Courtney, I can't remember her name, I apologize. Courtney is her first name. She's a pretty well known voice actress, and like they mocapped her. It's her like playing it. Like Jesse Faden looks like her. Courtney Hope, I believe his name, right? But she played it spot on. It was so much fun and so engaging to play. So good call. All right, so let me move on to my number 2, and this we might be contentious about this, but it's Resident Evil 2, the Resident Evil 2 remaster. I couldn't get enough of it. It was the first game I played last year, as the year moved in January, So I believe when we did our top games last year, what we do is we'll get to it later on this episode. But what have you been playing this year? And like, I was like, Resident Evil is so fucking sick, and I can't help it. Like, yes, I have nostalgia for it. Yes, it informed like one of my earlier like experiences with the medium, so I can't get away from that. But even regardless, I know people who I recommended to who I did not play the original, and like it works on both levels. If you're an original fan, or if you're just like getting into it right now, it is extremely well done survival horror, harkens back to the old school stuff, but also uses all the best modern updates. Capcom has been destroying shit, just in general, like recently, and I cannot help but put Resident Evil 2 on my number 2 list. I didn't do it for like the cheekiness of making it 2 and 2, like as we did the other year. But yeah, it was just fantastic. It looks slick as hell. The design, the combat, everything, like the redesign, the map and the inventory, it's everything you remember from the original and also updated, so I can't say much more.
I was in the middle of grad school, and I generally play video games late at night when I get back from teaching. So I couldn't get into Resident Evil 2.
You got scared?
I admit it. Like
that's why it's so good.
For some reason, it's just like it didn't. I didn't play enough of it to judge it, and I wasn't in the right mindset to play it when I had it.
That's fair.
I borrowed your copy of it, so I'm not. Again, I'm leaving it off the list for this one because I didn't play enough of it to judge it. Though from everything I hear, it is a fantastic game.
That's very respectable.
But my number one, and this is odd, is Outer Worlds. It's not odd because I think you have a similar thing, but it overtopped Greedfall through my second playthrough. The first time I played it on Supernova difficulty, and I was and I didn't love it the first time. I liked it, but I didn't love it the first time around, even though it harkens back to Fallout New Vegas and all the games I love.
That akin, yeah.
My second playthrough, I played it with no intelligence.
One
so
intel
I got the dumb and I also got to play it on normal difficulty for this one. So I wasn't like in Supernova it's actually fairly difficult.
It's pretty hardcore,
yeah. This one, it actually sold itself on the second playthrough, and that's hard for me to say in a
that's saying something,
in a
right?
game, yeah. And that I loved playing this dumb character who every single person you use dumb on, whether people think you're an idiot, that you are, or people think you're brilliant for you pointing out brilliant things, or think you're just joking. It's absolutely fantastic in the way they incorporate it, and that's what actually sold me on the game. My second playthrough playing a dumb character, and it was so funny, and narratively worked because I was working for the board in the second playthrough. So it just worked for me, and it rocketed for the fact that multiple threats. I enjoyed it the second time around more so than I did the first time around. Yeah.
I mean, well, of course, yeah. Number one for me is also Outer Worlds. So on top of all that, so I did not do 2 playthroughs, to be fair, in full disclosure, but I love Obsidian, and it was like it was a very anticipated game for me. Like they announced it not years back, like at E3 or whatever, like a year ago, before it came out. And yeah, I was looking forward to it, and it did not disappoint. It's the first-person RPG, like faction style. Your skills and points mattered. Like it, even beyond like or not even before, even like not just considering the dumb thing, right? Like having zero intel. But again, the parody, the writing is so top notch. It's a corporate futuristic thing gone awry, like Spacer's Choice and all that stuff. Like
it's not the best choice. Yeah. It's Spacer's Choice.
It's an amazing commentary upon like the excesses of capitalism, but wrapped around an amazing RPG first person experience in which all skills matter, in which the companions are great, amazingly voice acted, well written, and like maybe I'm biased, of course, like I admit. But this is the game that is, for me, that encapsulates, like, hey, did you like Fallout New Vegas and you didn't quite like Fallout 4? Obsidian is still doing amazing work. They're one of the best studios around, and I think they made the best game this year for all the reasons we just said. And it's even cooler that you said you got more out of it the second playthrough, doing it a different way.
Because I wasn't worried about the maximizing my character. I could role play even more.
So you're just like experiencing the world, and like it's so great, and it's very immersive, and top notch. So we agree. Number one game we agree upon. All right, so let me move along. So now we've done reverse 5-1, and Next category is do normal, like 1 to 5. So we're going on honor roll. For me, number one game on honor roll or honorable mentions is Borderlands 3. And I became a fan of Borderlands because of 2. I played 1 like I bought them actually as a bundle like years ago, like many years ago, with like probably from the Xbox 360. But 3, like, it's more of the same. So like, yeah, it's a bit biased. Like, if you like Borderlands, you're gonna like this one, but it looks crisper than ever. They shaved off a bit of the annoyances, but not all of them, to be fair. That's why it's honorable and not top games, because some of the, like, the old school, like, why would you design it this way? Or, like, just, you don't need to have it be this way. Like, we've moved beyond these design conventions. But it was such a joy. It's so entertaining to play. And the classes were great. The story was fine. I still think 2's story is the best. But regardless, they tied in. Like, they made things meaningful. Like, they didn't just, like, tread water. So I'll give them, like, if they did tread water, I would have been like, okay, fine. It might have still made it honorable. But the fact that they tried to move forward with the narrative and also the gameplay was just enjoyable, entertaining as hell, and very diversive. So.
And it had Penn and Teller in it.
Yeah,
so,
Penn and Teller was also Pain and Terror were their names, and like their in-character names. And it was great. Yeah, they get shit like that, and it's just very entertaining. Like, if you're into the series, and even if you're not, like, it's a good starting point.
They made one of my favorite concepts for a video game ever, Desert Bus.
Yep, Desert Bus is legendary for sure. I think there was a reference to it even in game, like even when you encountered Pain and Terror. But yeah, Borderlands 3, and I played the first DLC, which took place in a casino, like a derelict casino that Handsome Jack set up, if you know what that means. But yeah, just the way it was designed and the way it, like, fulfilled its promise of being one of the seminal looter shooters and new gen, it was spot on. So it earns the number one and honorable. What do you got?
My number one is Catherine Full Body. And I made it number one and not number 5 of best of, because I didn't want to explain this one first.
Sure.
I have yet to even get to the end of Catherine Full Body, because I have a very weird relationship with Catherine Full Body. Mm-hmm. It is perhaps one of the most fascinating works to delve into being a 30-year-old male.
Encapsulates that experience.
And having relationships. Whether it's the main tenet of the game is you have a long-term girlfriend named Catherine with a K, who is theoretically what society suggests you should. A serious woman, for your future.
Match.com says you should date this girl.
With Catherine with a C, who is a free spirit but maybe crazy. And you have like a one-night stand that develops into the relationship, and you're juggling these two.
Both of them.
It's a very, I feel, exploration of what you want as a man.
Is it more or less a visual novel? Like
a puzzle game with a kind of a visual novel aspect of it. Like there's a demon, or I think it turns out to be an alien or something like that, preying upon unfaithful men or whatever. But there's also a Catherine with a Q. And this is where it really... She's perhaps your perfect match in a lot of ways, but it turns out to be a cross-dressing... or I think a wafu is what they call it in Japan, but a man who seems like a woman. Maybe a metaphor for transsexuals. Sure. And it initially, I'm like, this is weird. And then I'm like, wait, what is this saying about... This made me very introspective over my own... both gender stereotypes about other people, but also what means to be masculine about a man. Sure. I think this brings up such interesting debates. And you actually get, there's morality checks that you get to see what other people chose. So you get to see morality checks about other people. Style? Yeah, but it's just questionnaires at the end of things about like asking you what your opinion about certain things are. You get to see what like men say, what women say who play, and what the general... And it's the one game I played this year that made me question things about myself and what my prejudices are. So I think it's such a fascinating... Yeah. Sure. And I think that it should be played for the questions it asks, even if it's just kind of a general puzzle
Even
game.
the gameplay itself, like in qualities and all that.
And what's funny is I played it initially because I'm a hot-blooded male, and I'm like, ooh, you get to pick between two women. I'm like, no, this is actually asking questions about this. It's fascinating. So yeah, like it has to get. It should have been my number 5, but I didn't want this to be my first impression going in there. So it's my number 1 of the mid tier.
Again, like similar to Phoenix, like the cat, like at least that bundle has gotten pretty wide acclaim for what it did. Like, yeah, like on the surface, like, oh, it seems like just like, I don't want to say a masturbatory fantasy, but like that's what it seems like if you just saw it like without any other information. But it
totally inverts that concept.
It subverts and delves into like shit like that, like very in depth, and gotta give credit. All right, so very nice. So like, I guess I'll dial it back. My number 2 in honor is Metro Exodus, the third in the series in the franchise, and I think probably the best one. The first 2 set up like what it was going to be, and were more like narrowly focused, like even like in level design especially. This one, it opens up a bit, and the banter, like in any other random game, like the hub city, like okay, you're on the train, like okay, but the way they flesh out the characters and your interaction with them, I think is so much thought went into it that it adds to it. Like the world building again is incredible, and yeah, the gameplay itself, like they give you more options, like all the options that were available in the previous games, as well as a couple other like new introductions. And yeah, it works really well. Like there are some levels that are very, very open world. Like the maps are huge, and like you explore this and that. Some sort of like harken back to the original 1 and 2, or like the more focused, like more not as much like just in the tunnels and stuff, like in the actual metro, the titular metro. But just in general, it advances the story, and the characters, if you remember them from the first 2, they all continue their own arcs, and I think it was really well done and fun to play. Downside would be something like the load times are pretty intense, like it was kind of annoying. A couple of the enemy designs were a little also frustrating, but overall, I think they did a great job and advanced the series, and in fact is the best one. If you get a bundle of all 3, they might have that somewhere, like some site might offer it, but Metro Exodus, I think, showed what they could do with new gen technology and did a good job with the narrative and the gameplay.
I've been playing the original Metro recently, and I'm impressed by that world building. But my number 2 is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I actually fell in love with it quite a bit because it harkens back to the original, like Castlevanias. It's made by the guy who developed that.
Igawa, I believe.
It is... it got a bit grindy to platinum it towards the end, but I don't think it was ever
too egregious.
Too egregious. It wasn't. It didn't remind me of grinding back in the SNES era.
Okay.
It was more fluid than that, and it allowed you to see what you had a menu which showed you what enemies dropped what items. So I only had to look up a couple of them, but in general, it wasn't too bad to get the platinum. Even though there were you had to get every item in the game, every.
Sure. I mean, it was a chore, but not too much of one. It seemed.
Yeah, I listened to podcasts while playing it, so whatever. Right. But overall, like I was impressed by the level of detail went to it. I loved Symphony of the Night playing back in the day. And it harkened back to that kind of era.
It's a spiritual successor.
Yeah, so I recommend it.
Yeah, good call. I will have a bit more to say about that because it is on one of my lists, but not in this one. But my number 3 in honor is Devil May Cry 5. So briefly, I really loved the first 2. It was on PS1 or 2, I believe, and yeah, like I kind of fell out of it, but I bought it on sale, like into the summer or something like that, like summer of last year, and it was Capcom knows what they're doing. Like, so they do that and they do Resident Evil. And just like, it's basically a B movie, but they know that and they embrace it. And the gameplay is tight as shit. As a spectacle fighter, as I think ZP like coined it, like, you're doing combos, you're trying to earn score, whatever. You do different moves, and you switch between different characters. I think the story was like, again, grindhouse as hell. And they knew that. And it was over the top, like, again, campy when it needed to be. And it was like 20 missions, like 20 like levels or something like that. And about halfway through, you don't get to play Dante, like the titular character of Devil May Cry, till about like mission 12 or something. So like you're itching for it. Right when you're itching for it, they drop them on. You're like, here it is. Here's to play Dante. And then you get to choose between them. and like the upgrades and stuff. It was just like the only complaint I have is that I felt the level design, or at least that's why I put it in honorable and not top, because the world building was okay, but it was a little like cliche, I guess. But other than that, gameplay was tight. Like I said, like they embraced their campy, their B movie, like sort of Sam Raimi, Evil Dead type nature, and yeah, ran with it. And it was such an enjoyable experience. It's totally worth it. The price of admission, take this ride, spend 15 hours going through it, and it was well worth it. And even if you don't, if you weren't a fan of the series before, it's a good starting point, similar to RE2. And if you are, they pay off a lot of things. So, gotta give them credit.
So my number 3 is Terminator Resistance.
Nice, yep.
I feel it's the Mad Max of this generation.
You said it to me earlier, and I said to you, I didn't think about that, but it is so perfect, so good.
I love the Mad Max game, and Terminator Resistance is brilliant in its narrative because it only addresses the first 2 Terminator films as canon, and it's
you should.
Well, the choices I picked for it, it's a closed loop time loop, so that works perfectly for me. But overall, I played it on normal, and you played it on hard.
Yep.
I kind of wish I played it on hard because even on normal, the Terminators were kind of always. I got the railgun fairly early, and that kind of
broke it a little bit.
But overall, still the Terminators were a threat. If I met more than if 2 of them were coming at me, like in a close quarters, they decimate me.
Yep.
I think my biggest problem was load times in that were really like maybe not as bad as certain
They're
games,
okay,
but
yeah, I know.
So,
I see what you mean. Sure.
but overall, like I really enjoyed the experience. It was a fairly short game, but it felt like a Terminator game more than any other Terminator game I ever played. And I think that it had narratively better than most of the movies did. So I would fully recommend, like if you get it on sale, it's a pretty quick ride, but it's well, also the acting isn't the best, but it's still,
it's okay for what they have. Like I said,
I went in expecting nothing, and I got a game. Also, they pace out open world areas with action sequences that felt very organic and felt very well paced.
Yes.
I would
balance
say,
it quite well.
Yeah, it'd be like 2 open world to 1 action set piece, and it worked. And sometimes you revisit, and like it was overall much better than it deserved to be.
Yeah, I agree. So again, I have more to say about that because I'm introducing a new category, but my number 4 on honor is Death Stranding, and this was a weird one because I wasn't sure where to place it at first. It's a little iffy. It's not for everybody. Sure, it's Kojima. If you know what that means, Hideo Kojima always has sort of I don't want to say outlandish. He has very ambitious visions for what video games can be. And like
Peter Molyneux.
Yeah. I think he's much better than Peter Molyneux. But like in the same vein, like they have just like in their mind, like here's what we can do with the game. And I was up and down with it, but on the surface, it's okay. It's like a fucking walking sim, not even like your third person walking sim delivery guy, right? But what makes it is even the asymmetric online aspect to it. And the whole theme of it is clearly community building, right? It's a broken America. It's like a crazy, like, there's like things like the beyond the grave exists and this and that, like monsters, like things can manifest themselves. Like, right, again, Kojima's vision, but the way it plays out in gameplay, I bought it like the week of, like the day of release or day after release. About a week later, because of the way Kojima like designed it, when you individually build, like if I'm just playing by myself solo, I have to build a bridge. Somebody else who plays it like in that same time frame or a day later, the bridge persists. Like certain structures persist. So the whole theme of it builds into gameplay. I came back like a week later, and there was a whole fucking road. Like, this is amazing. I can now get between this and that point very much more conveniently than just like shucking myself like across the road. And like it fosters community building, and that's clearly the whole theme is going for. So like while on the surface the gameplay could be a little bit finicky, the way you have to fucking shuffle or stack your fucking shit, like stack all the stuff you're carrying, the narrative is fine. Like he has so many high grade actors. Guillermo is in it. Fucking Troy Duffy is in it, like a whole bunch of people. Norman Reedus, of course, is the main character, right? So all the mocap, it's all their faces, and the acting, of course, is top notch. But the gameplay itself feeds into like what he's going for as a theme and how he's trying to build the gameplay. So I have to give him credit on that. And yeah, it was like a bit like it's a breath of fresh air. Like it's not like you're versus anybody. You come in, you just log on like, oh shit, somebody built a shelter and a bridge here? Thank you. That is so helpful. That is so awesome. Like, it's just fostering community within the world while you're still experiencing it yourself, in a sense. So yeah, I thought it was a really neat idea. So, as I struggle with it, waver with it, it's got to be an honorable number 4 because of that. And because I respect Kojima, in a sense, it basically uses the same engine as Metal Gear did, like more or less. Like the gameplay is about the same, but thematically and the way he integrated the asymmetric online stuff was pretty fucking awesome. To eventually it hit me. I was like, "Yo, this is a good idea," and I think there's more to be delved in with here. So what do you got?
So my number 4 is Sinking City.
Yep, nice, good call.
The problem with Sinking City is that I played Call of Cthulhu from last year and Sinking City right back to back.
Yep.
And I blend them together in my head.
I can see that, yeah.
I enjoyed Sinking City, and I think that if they had combined Call of Cthulhu with Sinking City, it would have been perhaps
an awesome Cthulhu game.
In my best of. But overall, I believe it. This was the. I blend them all together. This was the one who did the Sherlock Holmes games,
yep,
right?
They did definitely did Devil's Daughter and they Criminal Punishments as well.
So I love those games quite a bit, and I think that this was on par with those. I don't know. It's been so long since I played it that I can't tell the difference between the two Cthulhu games I played. I mean, in general, I can, but overall, I enjoyed it. But it was a mediocre game, which is right where this lies.
It's so funny. We had or taste the line. It's number 5 on my honorable mention. Mm-hmm. The last on the honorable list, because they knew like this developer. I should remember their name. I think it's Fogware's. They made, like I said, they made Crimes of Punishment. So they took that template. They wanted to apply it to like a Lovecraftian Cthulhu game. There's, if you recall, there are elements like. You literally had to go to the library or the police station or whatever to research stuff.
Oh yeah, that was neat.
So yeah, like that, like their ambition was clearly again like laid bare on the table. Mm-hmm. Now they were limited by technical, they couldn't quite get there. So while like it almost like my jokey thing was it somewhat teetered on the fringe of sinking under its own ambitions, but it was so clear they loved the material. They used the best they could with their engine and with the production value and the budget they had. So that's why it makes my number 5. Yeah, it was well done for what they could have done at the time. And I wish they would do... It would be very, very nice if they took everything that worked with Sinking City and did another one, just cutting out, like, streamlining the things that weren't quite up to par. But yeah... And yes, of course, as I've mentioned variously on all podcasts, when it comes up, I'm a big Lovecraft fan. There was no way I was never not going to get this game, but I was impressed with it to a pretty solid degree. Just that you could see the limitations there, but you could see the bursting, like the enthusiasm for the material. So
I'm going to go back to that for a second. Is that I feel that the main conceit behind Sinking City would have played as a good mini game, but not as a game, but not as the bannerhead of an entire game.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Like, I think that might be the thing, right? So, like, if they didn't try to do so much with it, if they tried to limit it more, it would have been like more focus. But I think again, the writing was fine. The combat was kind of shit. Sorry, I just gotta say that.
I agree.
But like that just. They were again using what they had to limit it, and like like the combat wasn't even the focus. The investigations and stuff, and the writing again. Like I think that stuff.
If they had the gameplay from Call of Cthulhu, combat wise, with the puzzle solving elements of Sinking City, this would have been a perfect game.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, that's why it sips on my number 5. So shall we?
I saw my number 5 again. Degrees of Separation. It's not Seasons of the Fall, which is
I've never seen Seasons of the Fall. Yeah,
indie style sort of platformer puzzle game. Degrees of Separation was this year's version of that.
Right. This iteration, sure.
It dealt with, I believe, a fire prince and an ice princess, and you had to use their
and so forth.
I mean, it was interesting, but not particularly memorable. Though I do kind of like those games overall. And if I remember, the puzzle mechanics were varied throughout it, but overall, I feel Season of the Fall was a better game than Degrees of Separation.
Overall, yeah, as a package.
Or at least it was more artistic, and I think that art applies a lot to these types of games.
For sure.
And that's what made Seasons After the Fall more memorable. Seasons After Fall.
Seasons After Fall. Which I still haven't played. It was on sale for like $4. I still haven't picked it up.
I don't pick it up. Yeah, it's fun.
All right, so that's top games and honorable. So this year for 2020, going back to, again, like the way we do it, 2019 games, I've introduced a new category. I love films. I'm just calling it mid-tier, or again, solid but not standout. So it's funny because you mentioned a bunch on yours. My number one for this category is Bloodstained. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the spiritual successor to fucking Symphony of the Night, but also throwing in some cool ideas. Like, for example, like when you kill a certain monster, you could have their ability, or an ability like that mirrors what the nature of the.
I only used 3 of them.
Yeah, no, the fucking mirror thing. Yeah. It was amazing. Like, right, but I'm saying is like, and the aesthetic, like the graphics were top notch. It was a cool like 2.5D pretty much. Mm-hmm. Like for the most part, it was a side scroller, but sometimes you'd be like go up like a big castle, like or a tower, and it would turn right. So like I thought that was really cool. Mm-hmm. Just all those things were well utilized. Yeah. It's from, I'm sorry, I apologize, can't remember the original developer's name. I think it's Kiro Ojiwa or Igawa, something like that. He was the original director for Castlevania. So, like, of course, the joke is, since Konami technically owns a copyright to it, it's like, I can't be Castlevania because Castlevania doesn't have a mustache. Like, right? It's like a bootleg of it. But it was so well designed, fucking top notch, so awesome to play. And yeah, I think you and I did, like, you did more than I did, like, of the optional bosses, like the secret and stuff, but just the way it was.
The 8-bit section of that game was great.
Yeah. Again, they had like cool references. It was not just nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. It was an awesome design game unto itself. Again, I'm going to give you credit where you could come into it. If you never played a Castlevania game and someone just gave this to you and you generally like platformers and stuff like that, it would be great. And if you know, like if you were, like this is the Castlevania successor that we're waiting for. So yeah. Gotta get a shitload of credit. Just that, again, I happen to have played more games, but number one on solid as hell list is Bloodstained.
I don't have anything for this. So I'm just going to... do you have a thing where you're doing missed games or anything
I got
like
a bunch more. Yep.
All right, so then I'll wait.
All right, I'll just run through my list. Yeah, so number one on mid-tier is Bloodstained. Number two, now, you mentioned it earlier, late game tie. For a while, it was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which was solid. It was like a Star Wars game using Dark Souls essential like combat systems, like third person. Every time you rested, all the enemies respawned, telling its own little separate story. It was done by Respawn, who was technically under EA's banner because they own the license Star Wars, but Respawn did Apex Legends. They did they're basically like people from Bungie, so like they knew what they were doing. The issue for me is that given like such a high ticket IP. And Respawning have the resources they have, there were some issues with it. There were some technical issues. Like I clipped through walls, like some shit. Like it just wasn't quite up to snuff, given what you expect from this studio. But what it was a cool combination of an original Star Wars story. Like not necessarily like, oh, there's no Luke Skywalker, there's no this and that. Cameron, the guy who plays Joker in Gotham, played the main character. Cameron something. I'm sorry, can't remember his name, but he was mocapped as the main character. And the combat gameplay itself, it was Metroidvania, right? You get a force power. Oh, I can't pull this bridge down. Oh, now I have force pull. Now I can go back to this area and do that. And yeah, like it had 4 or 5 difficulty levels. So if you wanted to go hardcore, our friend Louis Duran turned it up, like cranked it up, because he was a big fan of Dark Souls games. And yeah, it worked either way. It was a good property. Just it wasn't quite up to snuff that we would expect out of it, but it was still damn fucking solid. Now, late entry, as you mentioned, Terminator Resistance came out like November of 19 for consoles. Under the radar, nobody cared about it. Nobody gave a shit about it. It was on sale about 2 weeks ago, right before my birthday in early March. I bought it for $15 and played through it in a week. And it was damn solid, like you said. Cool time loop. Like, of course you have to have that. I respected them for that. And given what they had with their budget and the production value and the studio who was doing it, it's odd to me that even got to work with this IP. But given that they did and what they did with it, I think it's on par. So like, call it like, I don't know, your best IP, get like best franchise games of the year. I think Jedi Fallen Order and Resistance are about on same par in this area, and I had a good time with both. Even though it had like, you know, just like a 5% or less, like little glitchiness, little like, you know.
I do want to talk about that for a second because it really bothered me. You know the spider, the armored spider drones or whatever they are?
The mechs, yeah.
So I set a trap for one, but it kept disappearing. So for it to appear, I had to get close to it. And it would shoot at me. I'd run back because I had the ability to take the laser.
The traps,
so I'd set up a bunch for it to destroy it, and it kept disappearing before it reached the thing. So I had to reset it multiple times in order to plant the traps before it noticed me and lure it to an area before it glitched out. Yeah. So I'm frustrated by that. That was the one technical glitch I had in that game.
It had some technicalities. Like again, same thing with Star Wars. I was trying I remember sliding down like there were certain slide like sections, like almost like Mario 64 style, where I would just like clip through the fucking wall, and I couldn't I would die because I couldn't see where I was going, or it just would clip me to my death.
Fair enough.
But it was few and far between enough that I think they're about equal. Again, licensed property award there because they did the best they could with what they had, and it was solid as hell. All right, so I'll move on real quickly. Actually, you played this one too. Number 3 on my mid tier is Outer Wilds.
I didn't play enough of it to put it on my list.
So I know it got a big acclaim. Again, it was on sale like late in the year. And essentially, it's Majora's Mask in space. It's a time loop, again, like in space, like with a cool little like mini solar system, essentially designed world. The characters are really designed like almost cartoony, but like, again, works.
Oh, Majora's Mask is actually a very good metaphor.
It's a fucking time loop. So like you uncover like... at this point, a certain planet X, Y, and Z is happening, and like you uncover more and more information. It's a game of exploration, which when works is very satisfying. Like, oh shit, like you feel like you're learning something, you're figuring it out. Now sometimes you might hit a wall. Sometimes the design is a little bit iffy as well. Like I got glitched when I was trying to land my ship into on a landing port on a planet, and like somehow I glitched through the planet and got and died somehow. But the core idea and the conception, I think. Again, the ambition shows, and they did the best they could. It's a small studio. Annapurna, the movie studio, like their entertainment division, picked them up and produced it. So yeah, like just for what it is, it's really interesting. It's cool, and a well-designed game. It certainly has room for improvement, but I think for what it is and as it stands, it's worth to check it out. And if you're into it, again, Majora's Mask in space. If that appeals to you, it was well done in terms of that. And granted, my final thought is I didn't finish it, but I did as much as I could because I was also like playing a bunch of other shit. But I went through it a lot, and I was still engaged for the most part when I was playing it. All right, number 4, real quick. This is a good one. This is my retro award. Shakedown Hawaii. Imagine Grand Theft Auto, old school Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2, plus SimCity. It's basically what it is. Right, so you're going around. There's a plot to it. It's it has some like really nasty like commentaries upon like modern conventions of the game industry and just capitalism in general. Right, so I thought like that was really cool. Like loot boxes, like stuff like that. Like you're a fucking aging landlord who's trying to like keep his business afloat, and therefore you have to shake down literally all the other shops in this little like Miami, Florida style map. That's really like the pixel graphics, 16-bit style, amazing. Soundtrack, of course, old school synthwave, fantastic. But yeah, going through like you pick up different weapons and so forth, and do little challenges, blah blah blah, and then try to buy the whole city. As you buy more and more, you get like a feedback of cash, and you can invest in this and that, and the missions spur you along. Yeah, the retro game of the year, like, again, under the radar, solid, but I recommend it. That's why it's my mid-tier. If you're going to play like a Devolver-style game, that's the one you should play. All right, and finally, this one is a weird tie. I'm number 5 mid-tier. I've got Layers of Fear 2 and or Observation. So it depends. You like a bit more like thriller, psychological horror, or you like sci-fi. They're basically the same thing. Walking sim. I like the developer of Layers of Fear, although I'll have something to say about them later. But the first one, I like quite a bit. 2 was solid. Tony Todd's in it. They got him to like do a little voice there. Observation is basically 2001. The game you play as Hal, as the AI, and it has like a very cool little like very condensed and self-contained sci-fi story with some neat ideas. And yeah, it worked out well. And I really I gotta give credit. Like I really like walking sims, all that. And when a studio does them well and has like some cool little ideas. That
remains of Edith Finch.
Yeah, exactly. Edith Finch is the best walking sim, for sure. But I still think Ethan Carter is my favorite walking sim. And these ones are the crossroads of that. Like, the next generation, or they're following the footsteps. So, again, if you like horror a bit more, Layers of Fear, I recommend it. Like sci-fi, Observation, but both are solid, and they had tied on number 5. All right. All right, so now we're going to the week list. Shit's week! The worst games of the year, in a sense.
Can I go first?
Yep.
Because I only have one, because it's the last game I played this year. Although I played a bunch of games I thought came out this year. It turned out that came out last year, but regardless, 2018.
Hit me.
Sekiro Shadows Die Twice.
Wow, bold choice, but I'm behind it. Go.
And I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm saying it's not the game for me.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I'm not against Dark Souls type game.
You love
Demon Souls. Yeah. And perhaps I didn't get far enough in it, but the fact that they hint that they punish you by killing off NPCs every time you die, I feel it's unfair of pressure on me.
Sure.
That I now don't want to die and I can't learn to get good. And so I got past the first mini boss. I got props to the second or third level of the game per se, right. And then I never played it again because other games came across, and it wasn't just it didn't work for me.
It's funny. I'm with you. Like, I did not play a single second of Sekiro, but I know a number of people, like, both within our circle of friends and just in general, are into those kind of games. It's just not for me. Like, in theory they are, but I just can't get into them. So I was like, I know it won a game of the year and a couple other things, this and that, but it's, as you said, it's not the game for me. It's not the thing I'm going to get into. I can't engage with it.
I would say that my experience with previous Dark Souls is they allow you to adapt your play style to beat the game.
Right. This one requires mastery of
parries or whatever it was, and I just wasn't good.
Yeah.
So I
feel you. Yeah. So I skipped that one myself. So my week list, I'll go my 5. Number 1. So the week list goes. This is the worst game of the year, or for me, Wolfenstein Youngblood. And here's why. No reason. This game should not exist. There was no reason for them to make it other than just money. It didn't add anything to the narrative. The first 2 Wolfensteins, the modern ones, 2015, 2016s, were awesome. The writing and the story itself, BJ's story, was awesome. This one's, it was like, they tried to like make it as if you wanted to do like a co-op, but that doesn't like mesh well with Wolfenstein. And it's just, the writing was terrible. The characters weren't engaging, like they were annoying as well. They were voice acted well, but what the lines that they had to work with, gameplay wise, sure, it was fine. I guess it was the same engine, but it was diminishing returns, lackluster, no reason for it to exist. Just play New Colossus, play New Order, and that's all you need to do. Number 2 for me was Far Cry New Dawn. I like the Far Cry series. Say what you will about Ubisoft. Yes, I'm not defending them because of their practices and what they've done, but they make a couple of solid games that I like. So Far Cry was a spin-off for 5. It wasn't, and nothing will ever be Blood Dragon, granted, but it was just weak. And they slimily pushed microtransactions in a single-player game. So go fuck yourself on that. Like, I didn't buy anything. Like, yeah, you could earn them in-game. But it was fun enough because it was the core engine, the core gameplay from 5. But narratively, again, they did not have to make this game. It cost $40. Like, just put your energies into the next Far Cry and don't jerk off some random, like, stopgap, like, essentially DLC, marketing it as a full game and also, like, trying to shadily and snarkily sneak in fucking microtransactions and loot boxes and shit. So that was a week up for me. Number 3, this is an interesting one. Blair Witch. Made by the same developers, Layers of Fear, Bloober Team. They made Observer, which I quite like. So Blair Witch was like, it had mixed reviews. What Culture, Jules and Ash from What Culture, if you know who that is, like, they like, it was pretty good. And I liked the developer. I wanted to support them. Bought it for like $23, like on sale, end of the year. And the Blair Witch series is okay, but I was neither the biggest fan, neither like the biggest detractor. But what they did, like, it was boring. It was just boring. It was forgettable.
I saw Outside Xbox do a challenge of playing Snake. That's if Snake is the most interesting thing about your game, that's a problem.
Yeah, it was just boring. Like, they tried some new things, like a little bit mechanics beyond like the things they'd done before, and like good effort. Like, I appreciate the fact that they tried, it just didn't work. And like, it was also just strange to me that they released both Layers of Fear and this in the same year within months of each other. Oddly, and Blair Witch was just so forgettable. And like, I want the studio to be good, and I like their shit in general, but Blair Witch was just didn't get there, didn't work, and they should have focused on making either Layers of Fear better or a sequel to Observer. All right, so next on that is Blasphemous, which is also a weird one. Speaking of Dark Souls, it's basically an old school 16-bit style pixel game, but that tries to encapsulate the Dark Souls mechanics. So when you die, you leave behind like whatever, a marker, and like I believe your health goes down until you get to that marker. So like, the pixel art is absolutely fantastic. The best thing about Blasphemous is the way they've done their pixel art. Yeah, it's macabre. It's like Spanish Inquisition, like Catholic guilt manifests itself like physically and literally. Like, that's a really cool idea. But gameplay wise, like mechanically, it didn't live up to its potential, and it was like, it wanted to be both a Dark Souls influenced like platformer and also like an old school, just like, I don't know, like Mega Man style game, and that didn't quite mesh. And even like the magic spells didn't make any sense, or not didn't make any sense, but they were less useful than they implied to be. So you might as well just fight with sword. And yeah, again, look up like screenshots of Blasphemous. Again, the pixel art is fantastic, the way they used it, but as a game overall, it just fell a little bit between the sheets, if you will, fell between the cracks. So I have to put it here on number 4. Again, not the worst, but still not quite good. So Days Gone is number 5, and this is also one I struggle with. Originally, I had it on like honorable. However, at the end of the day, my note is Days Gone is the Miller Lite of games. Like, it's perfectly fine. It's zombies.
A fine Pilsner.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fine open world game. It's zombies. It's like GTA, like you're on a motorcycle, third person, like whatever, that's fine. The upgrade system is fine. The story is actually quite good, like decent, in fact. It took a twist or two that I didn't see coming, but it took a twist or two that I did see coming, right? So it's almost like, it's like AAA, like Little League AAA, if that makes sense. Like, it was backed by Sony. It was a Sony exclusive or PS exclusive. So yeah, it looked good, but I still experienced a couple of hiccups here and there. And at the end of the day, against the field, it's the least weak game, but it's in shit's weak, number 5 spot, because it's the closest to being an honorable. But yeah, like, it was just okay given relative to everything else. But it's still worth checking out for sure. Just in my personal opinion and my rankings, that's where it lies. All right, so yeah, those are our rankings. Got anything else? You said yours?
All right, I want to talk about one game that I played this year. I thought was 2019. I was excited to talk about it, but it turns out to be 2018. For the King.
Yeah, For the King, go on.
Which I had a blast playing through. It's almost an old school PC style, like
Right. I mean, even that title on Prime,
strategy
kind of thing.
RPG type thing. But I loved it. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I enjoyed every moment.
Was it a port? Like, was it a
I'm
PC
not
game?
even
Do you remember?
sure. I think it was a PC game before I heard it.
I mean, it seems like it would be.
I platinumed it, and
Of course.
but I like it. Harkened back to an era when I was growing up and playing these like Might and Magic games and all that. And it's not a complex game. There's no plot to it, but it's just it's almost a roguelike light game where they
generate
they randomly generate like the levels you're on. But it's, I don't know, something about it worked really well for me, so I wanted to give a shout out to that.
All right, cool. Definitely give a shout out to like other shit that I played this year. Trover Save the Universe is Justin Roiland's game from Rick and Morty. It was okay. Like the gimmick was it was him doing it, but other than that, it's essential like a basic platformer. That was like enjoyable enough. You might as well watch Rick and Morty. Like it wasn't as good as that, but the jokes were going for that. Deadfire, I will recommend this. Post Eternity Deadfire. It's Obsidian. They're old school, like classic, like isometric RPG. The original came out a couple years ago, and this is their follow up. The port came out in early, like February or January. I'm sorry, of 19. Played through it. Yeah, it's awesome. Critical Role people star in it. Water Tastes Like Wine, which was a port, which is quite good though. I liked it a bit, and I recommend it to you. Go on.
I'm very upset with the port because the Whippoorwill achievement wasn't active.
The trophies were a bit broken, unfortunately.
And I have all the trophies but that one, and even though they updated it and allow new players, I can't get it
still
now.
Doesn't activate.
So, fuck that game.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was interesting. I like the idea of it.
No, I like the idea of it too.
But trophy hunting, they did not optimize it. They didn't integrate it well, so you cannot get that trophy, which sucks, for sure. All right, so upcoming / what we played so far. What I played so far, 2020, Kentucky Route Zero. It's a strange game. If Jim Jarmusch and David Lynch made a game with like an intern from Kojima, it would be this game. And it's basically a point and click adventure, and not even that though. Like there's no puzzles. It's just conversations in like strange scenarios and strange vignettes. But it is up my alley. They finally collected it all into like 5 episodes or something like that. It was released over the course of like 7 years, starting back in like 2012, 2013. So it finally dropped as a console version in, again, early January, and I bought it for like $20, and I enjoyed the shit out of it. It's not for everybody, like I said, granted, but for like if you want to see what they're doing with video games as a medium, a la Edith Finch, check it out. Kentucky Route Zero, pretty fucking sweet.
A game I'm looking forward to is Ghosts of Tsushima, or Sashimi as I call it. I love the samurai aesthetic.
Yep.
Which is partly why I was so upset with Sekiro.
Sure.
But also I liked Omashina Warlords back in the day.
Holy shit, good call. Wow. Anybody remember that game?
Yeah. And I'm a huge fan of like samurai films and all that.
Yeah.
And so this seems right up my alley for what I want out of a samurai game.
Yeah, man. Perfect segue. I was going to go like, what are the most anticipated games? That one for sure, for me. I leave my own personal notes. Here's a little insight to me. Everyone's creaming their dreams over this game, and so am I. Can't wait for it. I believe it comes out the end of June. So yeah, for sure. Coming up soon. So today is March 20th. The Res Evil remake coming out in about a month. Demo is out. I'm certainly interested in it. Like I said, Res Evil 2, as you heard, was my number 2 game.
Nemesis was my favorite Res Evil game back in the day.
So they're redoing it, and I'm very interested in that. Doom Eternal also just dropped today of this recording. I played about an hour of it, and yeah, it was great. It was fun. It was a perfect follow-up to the original, or from 2016. Modern Doom in modern graphics, modern gen. Ghost of Tsushima. Second, about tied for me is Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh, yeah, I'm very looking forward to that.
Right, Ghost of Tsushima and that are about tied. CD Projekt Red is fucking fantastic. Possibly one of, if not the best developers in terms of being good to the fans. And even though there's some rumor, like there's some talk about how they crunch, they're still pretty good as a studio in general. So I'll give them credit there. And yeah, 2077 was pushed back, and look out for an episode about pushbacks, which will be coming out a little bit after this. What else we got? There's a Destroy All Humans. They're remastering that.
I played both.
I know.
I platinum both the original remasters of that, so I'm looking forward to this one.
Yep. Trials of Mana, demo of that coming out. I played through Zombie Army 4, which is like the technically separate game, but the DLCs for Sniper Elite. And yeah, it was fun. Hitler is a zombie, and he has a zombie army, and go kill him. It's fine. It was like Left 4 Dead, but with Nazi zombies and Hitler. And then also one more thing is two things. Disco Elysium.
Ooh.
I haven't mentioned it yet. Was like everyone was praising it, singing its laurels from last year. Was not ported. It was a PC game. I am absolutely waiting for the port for it.
Absolutely.
For consoles. It's supposed to be like right up like a landmark art, like a new generation of RPGs. So yeah, the developer's a very small developer from like Estonia or something like that, like a country like that, and they promised a port for it. So granted, I haven't been able to play it because it was PC only before, but I'm waiting on that 100%, and it might like backdoor into best games next year when we do it again. And finally, Maneater. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
You heard this? All right, check this out.
I know the
song, of
the
course
song,
you do.
yeah.
So you play as a shark, and it's like RPG like shark. Like you fight like a mutated sewer alligator, all that stuff. Like there's a couple of trailers. It was announced about a year or two ago on E3, and I was like, oh, it looks cool. A lot like sort of Greedfall. As it's getting closer, the release date is supposed to be in April. May, like May 25th. Yes, right. So end of May. But like they kept releasing like a couple of two trailers. Like it's like GTA, but you're a fucking shark, and like you upgrade yourself and you like evolve yourself, right? So it seems really cool. I'm quite interested in it, just as a fun little, I don't want to say diversion, but an interesting idea for a game using again conventions that have come before, but you're a shark.
Nice.
So that's pretty much it. I think we should call it a night. It's almost about an hour about games, but yeah.
It's over an hour.
Yeah, those are the ones that I've played and that Ian has played and that we recommend. Certainly we missed a few things. If we have, ship in the comments, whatever, but those are our thoughts, and I think that'll do it for what has become our tradition. Top games of 2019 here in March, here in the middle of March 2020.
Braving the quarantine.
Here in the middle of the coronavirus. Keep yourself safe from the C virus, and we'll see you next time.
Cough on your local boomers.
Good night. Thank you for joining the Lost Signals Games and Gaming Culture. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows and more, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.